love being a woman.
The first thing I thought of was Frozen Ground. So this is not the important part, because Frozen Ground is a movie with Vanessa Hudgens, but it's based off of a true story. And the story follows this guy, Robert Hansen from Alaska. He is horrific. Serial unaliver, and he would typically go after S-workers. He would abduct them in his car, fly them on his little private plane, release them in the woods, and then hunt them for sport. And he got away with that for a long time until he abducted this woman, Cindy Paulson. So while he's basically loading the cockpit of the plane, she's in his car and she realizes he left the door unlocked. So this is her window to get away, right? So she's going to make a run for it, but before she does, she has the foresight to leave evidence in the car. She kicks off both of her heels, leaves them in the back seat, and then takes off on foot. And it's a good thing because police didn't even believe her when she told them what happened. She is responsible for putting him behind bars, and she probably saved countless other women.
Make this make sense. And what we're talking about right here, again, is the case of Robert Seaman in Mahoning County, Youngstown, Ohio, who is charged with a 7-year-old little girl. And what doesn't make sense in this case was his bail amount, which was $250,000, and he was put on house arrest. And here is the woman that let him out on that $250,000 bail, Judge Maureen Sweeney. And what happened while he was on house arrest? He slipped his ankle monitor, went and burned down the house of the little girl, killing both of her grandparents and the little girl. Now, if you're new to my page, you may wonder what the connection is here between Robert Seaman and myself. It is that we both appeared in front of this woman, Judge Maureen Sweeney, at the same exact time. Our two cases running simultaneously, his for of a little girl and then a triple murder, mine for autograph forgery. Now, you may be beginning to wonder what I'm going to talk about that doesn't make any sense. Well, this man that had $250,000 bail went in front of this judge at the same time as me. So you'd have to assume that I was released, on my own recognizance, maybe $10,000, $20,000 bail, considering it's a non-violent forgery white-collar crime. And that would be where you would be wrong. My bail was actually $500,000. But not only that, this judge ruled in favor of Robert Seaman to be able to appear in court in civilian clothing and unrestrained. And to appear unrestrained is to presume innocence for the jury pool because his case was all over the news. But you know what? So was mine. And my motion to appear unrestrained as a white-collar criminal forger was denied by this woman. But to make it make sense, I can't really, other than to say she wasn't really the one making the decisions in the courtroom. We'll say this man probably was. And we'll just follow that up with, he was fired from his job as assistant county prosecutor not long after that. And I can't wait to start telling those stories, which is coming up soon, y'all. Appreciate y'all.
How does a woman in the home who wants to be as protected as she is in a parking lot make stand your ground laws work for her?
For those that do things like file the police report, that go get an injunction for protection against domestic violence, these women are very easily protected by stand your ground and self-defense immunity laws.
So for a woman to have stand your ground laws work for her in the home, she just needs to do a little bit more paperwork in advance.
That would be a very unfair characterization. I cannot describe to you how easy it is to get a temporary injunction in this state.
How long does it take to get an injunction? Like in terms of bullet shots?
There's a T-shirt that lists all the different bullet calibers and says all still faster than dialing 911.
If you have the paperwork, is that on the back?
No, if you have the paperwork, no.
Oh, you laughed because it's
an absurdity.
It's an absurdity that somebody would need paperwork to make a law that should work for everybody work for them.
All I'm saying is people have a right to defend themselves against a threat. Yes, we give the house more protection when an outside intruder is attempting to enter it.
Women are more credible when they accuse a stranger than when they accuse their spouse.
I wouldn't say they're more credible. I say it's easier for the court system to figure out who to believe.
Why do you think that is?
I think you've got two different stories, and very often you've got two families on each side now wanting justice for their family member.
If a woman is attacked in a parking lot by a stranger, or she alleges, does that stranger have a family?
Well, that stranger may have a family too, but if he's wearing a ski mask in the moment, it's very hard to claim he was, just
winter time. I know you don't have winter time in Florida.
We don't.
You have hoodies in Florida.
Yeah,
Substitute ski mask for a
We
hoodie.
had it. Does a hoodie make somebody subject to self-defense by another person? No.
People who oppose stand your ground will claim that it does not protect everybody equally, that people who are black could be targets because a white person could perceive them to be a threat when they're not actually a threat.
I would need to see evidence that that has been the case. I will tell you that I
A
have
kid getting shot with a hoodie on because a white guy thought he was a threat, hypothetically, or in reality.
well a
Breaking news, experts now say they believe Cameron Robbins may have suffered a concussion after jumping off the boat. A swim and safety expert said, quote, when he jumped into the water, he could have hit his head on the boat, he could have hit his head on the water, like slapping the water with his head. Either way, it could have caused dizziness or confusion. Additionally, several experts are skeptical on the theory that he was eaten by a shark. They also concurred it was more likely that he suffered a medical issue. They said they believe this because he, quote, showed no signs of distress before disappearing into the dark waters. A member of the United Cajun Navy who helped search for Cameron also says he does not believe he was attacked by sharks because when he was swimming to the rink, he, quote, didn't lunge and didn't jolt. He went on to say, quote, the water was moderately choppy and there was a strong current in that channel. It's been 2 weeks since Cameron vanished and they have yet to find his remains or determine officially what happened to him. However, authorities have declared him officially lost at sea, which is an equivalent to a death certificate. His family held a memorial for him last weekend. Keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
This woman is proudly showing off her new figure, but 29-year-old Lauren Robinson is about to pay the ultimate price for cosmetic beauty. The mother of four wanted to fix a botched breast augmentation surgery from years ago that left her scarred. She decided to go to a clinic in Matamoros, Mexico for the procedure. The town is notorious for questionable conditions and cut-rate cosmetic procedures. Lauren chronicled the entire journey, posting video of her body before the surgery. Here she is, en route to Mexico. And this is a photo of her in the clinic with her husband right after the 3-hour procedure. In addition to getting her breast fixed, she got a Brazilian butt lift and liposuction. In no time flat, she appeared back to normal. Stephen Fabian spoke to her husband.
She went back to work. Everything was great.
Here she is, headed to a fishing trip with her kids. But a few days after this trip, she started to feel terrible.
She just kept randomly having, like really bad migraines where she wanted to cry.
While all this was going on, Garrett, did you both have suspicions? Okay, this has to do with the surgeries in Mexico?
Yeah, that didn't take us long to realize.
What no one knew is that there was a ticking time bomb in her body. Doctors determined that Lauren had contracted fungal meningitis. It's believed she got it from either contaminated anesthesia or unsterilized equipment in Mexico. Lauren suffered 4 mini strokes as her health declined and ultimately was put on a ventilator. Lauren died on May 31st, 3 months after the breast surgery. And now the CDC says 17 people have suspected meningitis after going under the knife in Mexico. A total of 212 U.S. residents are being monitored for signs of the deadly infection. Lauren's husband has a message.
Don't go to Mexico for anything like that. It's not worth losing your life.
Friday, March 27, 2015 was an exciting day for 17-year-old Tierra Hall. It marked the final day of school before the much-awaited spring break, and she eagerly looked forward to the upcoming holiday. Nothing from that day was out of the ordinary, and the school's surveillance cameras caught her going about her day as normal. Yet things would very quickly take a turn for the worse, and Tierra never made it home that day. The following day, on March 28th, a heart-wrenching discovery was made. Tierra's lifeless body was found in an abandoned house less than 2 miles away from the school. The grim scene revealed the horrific extent of a brutal attack. She'd been stabbed 14 times to her head, neck, face, and chest, with the only pieces of evidence left behind were the school hall pass found in her pocket, her phone case lying beside her, and graffiti on the house's wall bearing the ominous inscription, King K the Savage. With no other leads or substantial evidence to guide them, investigators turned their attention to the school's surveillance cameras, and it was during this scrutiny that they came across an unsettling discovery. This is the heartbreaking case of Tierra Hall. Tierra Hall was a 17-year-old girl from Durham, North Carolina. She actually grew up in Texas, but moved with her mom to Durham in 2011. Life in North Carolina seemed to go well for Tierra. She enrolled in Jordan High School and very quickly made a host of friends due to her magnetic personality. Her funny and goofy nature drew people to her, and her unique nature would lift the spirits of those around her. Tierra was a free spirit who had dreams of pursuing a business degree after graduating high school. It was also during her time at Jordan High School that Tierra met fellow student Kelton Breshan Fox. The two formed a bond from the start, and it wasn't long before they started dating. Tierra's mom observed Kelton's demeanor closely, and she found him to be a well-mannered individual who always exuded respect and courtesy. And although there were never any obvious red flags, her mom did notice that their relationship seemed to be an on and off again relationship. Not too concerned, she brushed it off as part of the ups and downs that are often part of teenage romance, and she didn't see it as anything more than typical teenage drama. Around the time of Christmas in 2014, something, however, shifted in the dynamics between Tierra and Kelton. It seemed that Tierra had made the decision to end their relationship once and for all, and it was clear that this time there was no going back. When her mom inquired about the reason for their breakup, Tierra told her that Kelton was too clingy, making her question the longevity of their relationship.
I tried to get her to elaborate on what clinging meant. She said, "You're just too clingy." And she just brushed it off. Like, I thought, okay. He was so mannerable. He shook my hand, was yes ma'am, no ma'am, made sure she got in the house before he left, everything. So, I mean, I had no reason to think that he would do anything to her. I thought he loved her.
On Friday, March 27, 2015, Tierra was getting ready for the last day of school before the much-anticipated spring break. During the course of that morning, however, she got into an argument with her mom, as often is the case between a mother and her teenage daughter. The fight wasn't anything significant, and before Tierra even left for school, the air was cleared, and she even hugged her mom goodbye, not knowing that this would be the last time they ever saw each other again. During the course of the day, her mother tried calling and texting Tierra to check up on her, but all her messages went unanswered. Initially, her mother brushed off the lack of response, assuming that Tierra was probably preoccupied with her activities at school. But as the hours wore on and the silence continued, accompanied by the fact that Tierra didn't come home after school, her mother's concerns grew. Tierra had always been a responsible and thoughtful girl, always keeping her mom informed of her whereabouts and the company she kept, so for her not to make any contact was definitely out of character. Tierra didn't come home at all that night, and at the time her mom thought that she was probably still upset about the fight they had that morning and that she was probably just staying over at a friend's place blowing off some steam. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case.
She was so good about telling me where she was going to be, who she was going to be with, when she was coming home. Mom, can I stay? Because she had a mistrust of people. But this happens to her. She was a happy-go-lucky, humble girl. I had no trouble out of her. No trouble.
The following morning, police received a concerning 911 call. A man said that he and his girlfriend discovered what they thought was a woman sleeping at an abandoned house just 2 miles from Jordan High School. When police arrived at the scene, they found the body of Tierra Hall. Police attending the crime scene described it as nothing short of brutal, with Tierra having suffered 14 stab wounds to her head, neck, face, and chest. Next to her body was her phone case, although her phone was nowhere to be found. On the wall of the house not too far from her body, they saw graffiti that read, "King K the Savage," and in her pocket they found a hall pass for Jordan High School. Police went to the school and immediately started examining the CCTV footage to try and spot Tierra, looking for any clues of what may have happened to her. It wasn't long until they spotted Tierra going about her day, walking through the hallways and eventually entering a classroom. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary, so the police went to the classroom to look for clues. There they found Tierra's backpack next to her desk and her computer still logged into her account. This was clearly a concerning sign, and they knew that there was much more to uncover. They then continued to examine the CCTV footage, hoping to find any other clues which may help solve the case. At around 12:30 p.m., they spot Tierra in the hallway interacting with Kelton Breshan Fox. At first, their conversation seems to be playful, before Kelton grabs what appears to be Tierra's cell phone, before taking off. Tierra then jumps up and runs after Kelton, following him out of the school property and towards the abandoned house about 2 miles away. Footage from a neighbor's camera captures Kelton passing at about 12:40 p.m., with Tiara following behind less than a minute later. 20 minutes later, the same surveillance camera captures Kelton returning to the school, but this time there wasn't anyone following him. Kelton goes back into the school as if nothing had happened, and he immediately walks towards the restroom. He places his hands inside his sleeves, presumably to hide the blood on his hands. Kelton emerges a short while later, and this time his hands are no longer covered. He goes to the school office where he tells staff that he wasn't feeling well, so they called his mom to pick him up. Kelton left the school with his mom at around 2:10. Armed with this new evidence, police went to search the school restroom. Despite Kelton's best efforts of cleaning up the scene, they found bloodstains around the trash can, which was later confirmed to be Tiara's. A search of his bedroom revealed a pair of sneakers that contained traces of blood, as well as a journal that had the words King K the Savage written on it. The contents of the journal revealed an obsession with Tiara, his suspicion that she had someone else, as well as the mention of his uncontrollable lust for blood. Police then arrested Kelton Breshan Fox on suspicion of murder, and because he was a minor at the time, they took his mom along to sit in on his interrogation. Prior to interrogating Kelton, however, they first interviewed his mom and asked her if she knew if Kelton carried any sort of weapons.
Does he normally carry a weapon or anything like that? Do you have you ever known? Like nothing but a little what you call a little pocket knife. I know he had a pocket knife. Yeah, he liked that.
A search of Kelton's room, however, revealed a particular affinity to knives. When police questioned Kelton, they wanted to know if he had left the school at any time. At this time, they had already seen the CCTV footage of him walking to the abandoned house. But of course, Kelton didn't know it at the time.
Did you leave the campus at any time?
For a smoke break.
Okay. So you left during high school?
I was on campus, but
okay.
You know, I was.
Okay, so let me rephrase that. Did you ever leave during high school property?
Yeah.
Never did. Okay. Okay, so let me just make sure I'm hearing this right. That you never left the property.
No, sir.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm hearing that right, because that's lie number one. So I'm just letting you know that that's lie number one. I let them know that I know everything. So go ahead and continue on. We'll talk about that lie here in a minute.
I tell my son, they think it's not.
It ain't about what they think it's about. What you want here?
I get locked up.
You won't get locked up anyway. All of this is what's how you want to anyway. You're not going home with me tonight.
On June 14, 2018, more than 3 years after Tiara Hall's murder, Kelton Breshan Fox pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 12 to 15 years in prison, which means he is due to be released in April 2027. The defense put forward his mental illness and his age at the time as mitigating circumstances to the case, and they also mentioned the state's inability to prove premeditated murder. The state, on the other hand, believed that Tiara's cell phone, which has not yet been found, would have provided evidence of her having been in contact with another guy, and this would have been the motive for the murder and proof that Kelton had planned the attack. They said that after he realized that Tiara had moved on and that he no longer had a chance with her, he planned to kill her instead. His plan was to grab her phone, knowing that she would follow him to the abandoned house, where he would then carry out his gruesome deed.
When this happened, Kelton couldn't vote. He couldn't buy cigarettes. He couldn't buy alcohol. He couldn't serve in the military and fight in a battle. He was a child. And importantly, he had a child's brain.
He's going to be sentenced to a minimum of 144 months.
Tatiana, I'm going to be quite honest with you right now, okay? One parent to another, right? And I'm going to try and control my emotions, all right? I've been to a child death investigator school, and I've seen photos and images of children that have been malnourished. And I'm telling you right now, this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Oh, no, really?
Yes.
Baby Mary weighed just 8 pounds at the time of her death.
At what point in this illness did you think there's a good chance she's going to die?
I didn't think at all that she was going to die.
That is a charge called homicide felony murder. It is life without parole. It requires a DNA sample to be taken upon arrest.
His mouth drops in shock. He can't believe what he's hearing. His wife's reaction? She sobs uncontrollably. Tears streak her face.
Welch's stunned expression during arraignment has been seen around the world.
Oh, I was very shocked, and I went to my cell, and I cried, and I cried, and I laid down flat on my face, and I just cried out in prayer.
Welch told us the day she died, Mary had been sleeping for a very long time, more than 12 hours. He says his wife went to check on the infant, and she was dead.
I could tell from looking at Mary, I could tell because her skin was gray, her cheeks looked sunken, like they weren't when we put her to bed. I knew she was dead.
He says that he and his wife did not take their daughter to the doctor regularly for religious reasons, and
it's dangerous to take your kid to the doctor's office these days.
He insists that had he known her life was in peril, that he and Fusari would have gotten her help.
She just died, sir, and we provided everything for her, and we have all the evidence to prove it.